Thank you for coming. It's such a pleasure being here. And a year ago, last February, uh, Abby and Gundy asked if I would do a show of February 2025. And I said, does it matter to you what I paint? And they said, no, whatever you want. Well, my life the last several years has been me, along with doing painting commissions for other people, I've also been very, very busy painting up at Lost Valley Ranch. And the first thing that happens is people say, how did you ever end up at Lost Valley Ranch? Where is it? How do you get there? What kind of ranch is it? Well, I myself didn't even know about Lost Valley Ranch. And then this, so before I even got connected with them, the story began back in 2016 when I did this little painting of my granddaughter taking writing lessons. And it was just a little birthday gift for her. I had only painted one horse in my whole life, so I really wasn't into Western art. But she was taking writing lessons and I photographed her and I thought, oh, wouldn't this be fun for her to have as a memory of when she was little riding this horse? And so I painted it. And then about a year later, uh, we were sitting in church and a couple behind us introduced themselves and said, we have a horse ranch just down the road. And I said, oh, I painted a horse. I was so proud of my horse. And so I painted the horse and I showed them that painting on my phone. And they said, oh, would you ever consider painting our horses? We have 4 generations of horses and we'd love a painting. So I did a large one for them. It was a 24 by 36. I went over to their little ranch and I was on my stomach photographing horses, following them around, doing everything I could. And I was just so excited because this painting was fun. So I thought, I'll do a bigger one. And so I got that commission because I knew I did commissioned work. And so that was at that time. And so I did a little timeline for this talk. And so the next thing that happened was in 2000, so 2 years later, 2018, I was invited to a birthday party that was for my daughter, and her 2 friends were hosting, and it was at Lost Valley Ranch. And I thought, where is that? And so we all rode up together. And I remember my daughter saying, you need to buy some cowboy boots. And I said, why? And she goes, because we're going to be horseback riding and you don't know what you're going to step in. And so these are the boots. And I remember thinking, when am I ever going to wear these boots again? They're expensive. And I thought, okay, I'll buy the boots. And I was glad I did. And we went on this wonderful birthday ride. And it was just a marvelous experience. But I'll never forget getting out of the car when we first arrived. My first words out of my mouth to my daughter Stephanie was, I want to paint here. I wish I could paint here one day. And she said, well, maybe one time you can come up here. And that was the end of that. And then after the horse commission, I got an invitation from Gundiga, who at that time had G44 Gallery. And she saw my painting on Instagram and she said, would you ever do a horse show, a solo exhibition of horses? And I said, sure. So once again, I said yes to that. And here's the postcard. And it was fun. This was one of the horses that I'd painted, and here was another one. And so this was my first horse show. And at that time, I didn't have any connection to the ranch. At that time, I'd just been up once. So my husband and I, Robert, we followed and found horses wherever we could. We would go down Highway 83. We were everywhere just looking for horses, and I'd photograph them. We met horse ranchers because they'd see me out there, and I'd be invited into their stables. And one even gave us a buggy ride with his horse, and it was just the most amazing experience because I was getting to be around horses and get ready for the show so that I'd have a decent body of work for this show. And so when this postcard came out, my daughter Stephanie said, could I send it to some of my friends? And so I mailed these to her friends, and one of them was the wife of the CEO of the ranch. And she got the card, but she didn't get to come to the show. But by this card, she saw me at another event. And as I was coming out of the restaurant and she was coming in, she said, Rita, I got your postcard about your show. She goes, do you think you could ever come up to the ranch and paint? And I said, I would love to. I mean, I couldn't believe it. that a year later, all of a sudden I was getting an invitation to come up there. And she said, "Could you come up 4 times this summer?" And I said, "Sure." Well, the first time I went up, I was I did plein air painting every time. So I'd pick a day of the week and I'd set up my easel and I started to paint the scene of the barn. That's that little red barn up there. And I would do these long panoramic scenes because the barn spread out and there was a tack room and the horses. The first painting I did, I was working on it and it was not even halfway done. And the guests at the ranch, this ranch turned out to be a dude ranch where guests would come. There's 23 or 24 cabins up there, and it's a working cattle ranch. And the guests, like two or three, said, "I want to buy that painting." And I realized, oh, it's because they've come here for years and they rebook and it's and the gal Brooke who had invited me to come up, the CEO's wife, she said, "No, you can't buy it. We want it. We want to hang it up for at least a little while." And it was so funny. I looked at her like, "What?" But her dream was to have a gallery wall of my work up there. And so I thought, oh, that sounds wonderful. So I said, how about I bring up some of the paintings that I did at G44 that did not sell after the show, and we'll hang them there. And so I finished that one and put it in the center on a Wednesday, and by Saturday it was gone. It sold so quickly. So that began my time up at Lost Valley Ranch. I would come up once a week and set up my easel and paint plein air. There's beautiful rocks up there. Everything is just gorgeous. There's scenery everywhere. And so I would just paint, hang them on the wall, and sell them. And so that was the first couple of years. And then I would come up by myself. My husband Robert was still working. It was a winding dirt shelf road, drop offs, scary. Sometimes it's a one lane along a ledge. Have you been up there? And yeah, it's dangerous. And sometimes you'd come up to another car coming the other way, and one of you'd have to back up and find a little bit of room for them to come. And it was kind of a scary adventure for me, but I wanted to do it so badly because I thought this is so good for my art skills to do plein air every week. And I was so excited to do it. And so what happened was from those 4 days a week, it became more structured because the guests at the ranch that were coming up every week just loved to see me out there painting. And the ranch realized that there was value in me being there. It was adding to the experience. And so um, they would gather around, and the kids that were, from the families that were visiting, and guests come from all over the United States as well as Europe to this ranch. And they book the same week every month, every year, so that they have their same cabin. They make friends with the other guests that are coming up. So it becomes this very familiar, homey place for them. And so at one point, I was painting so much just to try and keep artwork on the walls that it was just almost overwhelming. I would paint and paint and paint, put it up there. And what was happening is everybody wanted memories of the ranch, just like when you go to any vacation place. And some of these families had been coming since they were small children. For 40 years, they'd been coming to the ranch since they were young, and now their grandchildren were going. And so it became a very personal place for them. And so I just got to be a part of it and get to know the guests. And pretty soon they were saying, "Will you paint this for me of my child out there in front of the corral?" And so I started to get commissions with that, and it just became a really fun place. And then as time went on, I became part of their program. So it was every week I was the guest painter, and they eventually said, "Could you come on Thursdays because we don't have a lot of activities for the guests on Thursday?" And so every Thursday I'd go, and it was wonderful. And then in 2020, Brooke, once again, she's seen me paint outside, and she said, could you sell some prints at the ranch? Because they have a store up there. And she said, not very big, something that they couldn't put in their suitcases. And so this is just a sample of what I had. And so these were samples of the prints that I would sell in their store. And so my little art business was starting to expand with prints in the store. And I decided not to compete with myself, so I would only create prints of paintings that I'd already sold. So it was kind of fun because I'd sell a painting and think, oh, now I can put another print in the store, to where there's quite a variety of prints that I have there. Here's another one. And it was just fun because not every guest wants to or is able to invest in a painting. So then they had the option of bringing home prints. And what's been really fun over the years is guests will collect them. So some say they have a whole wall of different prints that they come up here. So I thought it'd be fun to bring you samples of that. And so that happened in 2020. And then in 2022, they asked me if I would be the guest artist during their dinner hour. So on Thursdays when I was there, I started staying later, and they would put out these long banquet tables, and I would display all my artwork that wasn't on display already at the ranch. And I would sell these. I would sell paintings, and then I started this. These are the only two samples I have, but I would start paintings and then selling cards of paintings I had done up there of flowers from Lost Valley Ranch. So as you can see, there's hummingbirds from Lost Valley Ranch. I sit on the porch and paint hummingbirds. So there would be hummingbird cards. I would paint wildflowers that were growing around the property. People love anything that reminds me of the Lost Valley Ranch. So that became a thing. So on Thursday evenings, I was displaying my work and selling that. And then, let's see, in uh, June of 2023, they said, have you ever taught art? And I said, oh, yes, I have. So they said, would you teach, could we offer art lessons for the guests on Thursday afternoons? So then I said yes to that. And so in the mornings, I paint plein air on Thursdays. In the afternoon, I give art lessons to any guests that sign up for art lessons. And then in the evening, I display my work along during the dinner hours so that when the guests come in, they have something to enjoy while they're waiting in between courses or just when they walk in. And that's been a really fun part of it too. And so at that time, I bought my first cowboy hat. And if you were up there, you'd see the guests that come from all over. They have all the outfits and all the clothes. And I realized, oh, I want to be a part of this, and it helps with my marketing as well to dress the part. And so I never imagined in my dreams I would be fully dressed in Western clothes, but it's been really fun. And so that happened. And then also in 2023, the store manager said, why don't we just do a whole display for you? So in one part of the store, it's paintings, small paintings, paintings on the wall, all my prints, and a little information board, kind of like what you and Abby have, Gundy. And it tells a little bit of my story, and I'm just the in-house artist at Lost Valley Ranch. And so that's how it all happened. It's just amazing, and it just kept adding on until where it's a very full Thursday. And then for this show, we have the opportunity to stay up there when the ranch isn't completely full. And so when Abby and Gundy asked me to do the show, when we spent the night, like this one over here, was in the morning with the horses all gathering, and they're gathering them together to take them down to the corral for the riders. So the riders fill out their ability, and then from that, the riders' ability with horses, then they choose which horses for them to ride. So they gather them, and so this one is titled The Gathering, and then this one of Apollo on the end. I was teaching an art lesson this fall, and we're in a sunny window, south window, and I have all the easels set up, and we're painting. And I turn around and I see Apollo and all these other horses with a horse trainer, and he's working them, and the guests are watching as he's this amazing personal or horse trainer that is a professional. I see these horses running, and in the middle of my art class, I've never done this. I said, do you mind if we go out there right now? We'll come right back to paint. And they said, no. I mean, it was just so exciting to see these beautiful horses with no tack on them all. They didn't have bridles or anything. They were just free out there. And he was out there with his rope and working them. And so we ran out there, and that's how Apollo came. This is another early morning one. The same afternoon that I painted Apollo, I also painted this one, which I called the Flyboys because they were just flying around that arena. It was just amazing. And so my inspiration comes from all of this. And this horse that they called Big Bird, but I felt like he needed a more amazing name, so I named him Magnus, aka Big Bird. He was a trial horse, but he was so tall and so magnificent, and there'll be more paintings of him. He was just stunning as they worked him around in the corral. And then on Thursday afternoons, they have a lunch up on a mountainside, and the man on the right, his name is John. He and his wife come up every week and they cook this amazing meal on a mountaintop. I mean, there's a big flat rock, and the riders come over the ridge after riding all morning, and it was in the fall, and he's preparing this amazing open fire meal for them. And so I was invited to go up, and I photographed him. And then another guest, HJ, was there, and that gives you an idea of how some of them dress. And I photographed them and said, "Do you mind if I do a painting of you? And I'll give you a print of it." And they're like, "No, no, we'd be happy for you to paint us." And so those are, so HJ on the left, he comes up every year. I think he comes from California. And then John, who's the cook, and his wife, they drive from way east of Denver. And then the little painting at the top, that's the barn at Lost Valley Ranch. And that I painted standing on the lawn, just looking at it, plain air. I didn't use a photograph, and I did it all in palette knife. So if you go up real close, it's just really thick paint. And so that was fun. And all these horses have names at the opening. It was really fun. A lot of the ranch staff came and they could name all the paintings, I mean, all the horses. And then the two snow scenes. Lost Valley is beautiful uh, during the winter, and we've been up there during the winter. And of course, that one with the road is Shelf Road just before it starts getting really windy and scary. And so that's basically my story. Lost Valley Ranch has been around since well, it was established late 1800s, and then someone else bought it in 1900, and he decided to make some money. He would mine. This was during the gold rush. He would mine in the winter, and then he built 5 cabins, 4 or 5 cabins, and would have guests come there. And then the next owner uh, took over from there. And in 1961, it was bought by uh, a foster family, and they had investors, and they built more cabins and turned it into a AAA 4 diamond resort working cattle ranch. So it's been going around along for quite a while. It's just, yeah, amazing. And the family that's running it now, they're just so supportive and wanting, they announce me at Thursday evenings, and I am very fortunate to get commissions from that. So I do a lot of painting commissions that I ship all over the United States. So it's been a great friendship up there. And then it's just fun to have been able to paint like the guys in the red shirts. They do a rodeo every Sunday, and so I call that rush hour. So the wranglers up there are trained and they do an amazing rodeo show. The one to the left of that, that was when they were working a new horse in the pen. And then the rider in the white shirt, that was from a rodeo. And so it's just been fun to get to know the horses and to paint them. So that's my story of Lost Valley Ranch. This is my 7th year I'm starting with the ranch. So I can't believe it that I've been going for 7 years. And now I teach art lessons to the staff every spring, and for their spring conference when they train the new staff that comes in. So all the wranglers and the waitresses in the dining room, they're all college students that come during the summer, and maybe they'll take a semester off and work there in the spring. So lots of young people with lots of energy. So, and that's my story of how I got connected with Lost Valley Ranch. And so when they asked me to paint this, I thought, oh, I just love Lost Valley, and this is so much a part of my life now. So I titled it With Love from Lost Valley. So you get an idea of it. Yeah. So do you have any questions? Except when I'm painting from life. And so there are paintings where I've actually gotten inside that corral with the horses all in there, and I'm painting away. Right. One of them, like I have a painting, well, I sold it, but it was a painting of a white horse. They'll tether it next to the red barn, and I just paint it while it's, kind of tied to the barn. Yeah, to the railing there. This one, Vamonos, which means let's go. This was another early morning. So sometimes I'm out there when we spend the night. I'm out there. The wranglers will go out there at 4:30 in the morning to start gathering the horses because there's 150 horses up there. And so they choose them depending on what type of horse they are for what guest. But sometimes usually there can be up to around 80 guests up there at a time or maybe more with the children. And they have a riding program for kids as well as the adults. So it's it's a and then there's the cattle. So I've I've got a lot of cattle paintings that have to come out. So yeah, I know. So that's been fun. Yeah, I think that's about it. I have ridden, but I would rather be painting than writing. But we've ridden up there, and those horses, they're beautiful, and they gave me a nice horse and it's gorgeous. It's a whole different feeling when you're out there in the wilderness riding. And so probably I'll end up riding some more. But my time up there, I just love to paint. So I feel like uh, at this stage of my life, I'd rather be painting. So, but it's fun. And I'm welcome to go in the corral or anywhere. So I'm brushing horses and feeling their muscles and everything and how they're built. And it really helps with painting. And I've learned that horses are like people. Some have long noses, some have short ones, some have wider ones. I used to, in my mind, think they were all shaped the same, but they really are not. Some are big boned, some are small, some are short, some are tall. It's it's amazing. I can walk up to a horse sometimes this summer and said, "How are you?" And he literally stomped his foot and shook his head. And I thought, "Oh my goodness!" But they're amazing and all different types of personalities. Some are ornery. I'll I'll be in there early in the morning photographing them saddling, and one of them will decide he doesn't want to be ridden that day, so he's kind of pushing the poor wrangler around and shoving him with his hips, and the wrangler shoving back, and I'm sitting there taking photos because I'm so excited about the movement. And then the wrangler turns around and goes, "Did you get that?" And it's like, "Yes, I got it." And then I'll get a text from him, "Could you please send me that photo of the horse trying to ram him up against another horse?" But same with the one of the horse bucking here. This young man, Carson, after it was over, after the horse settled down, he said, "Did you get that?" And I sent him a photo, and he also got a print of it. So it was fun. Yeah, it's never the same up there. So I never get bored painting because there's always movement, there's always things changing. The horses are always doing something different, and I've learned a lot about how they're shaped and their eyes are different. Some have huge eyes, some have small ones. They just remind me a lot of people. Yeah. So yeah. Any other questions? Well, thank you. Uh-huh. Thank you. Yeah.